What would the world look like if people felt like they mattered? Welcome to the Lead with Love podcast, exploring what it means to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, Jada Selner, and in this show, I'll share meaningful conversations to help you, the creative, the entrepreneur, the world changer, reach more people, go after your dreams, and serve your community with love. I appreciate you joining me. Now let's get cozy and start today's episode. What do you do when things don't work out the way you expected? The answer from today's guest: embracing rejection as redirection. In this episode, I dive deeper into what that means for Amber Rae, the published author of Choose Wonder Over Worry. Now, in my Love Over Metrics mastermind, I lead a group of creative entrepreneurs. So if you identify with being a creative entrepreneur, you're really going to love today's conversation. And you can find out more about my mastermind at loveovermetrics.com. I'm actually reviewing applications very, very soon, so you definitely want to get on the priority wait list. Now, a big question that comes up inside my mastermind group is, how do you manage your expectations of success and setbacks? And what I love about Amber Rae in this episode is she shares how she leans into this question through her curiosity with experiments, not always knowing what the outcome will be on the other side. And one of those experiments we talk about in the episode, and it's actually how she got her book deal, which is so cool. So Amber Rae is an author. She's also an artist and speaker whose work invites you to live your truth and really connect with your emotions. Now, her public art has spread to more than 20 countries, and her personal stories and her online musings has reached more than 5 million people in 195 countries. So I love when she shares her answer of how she decides what and how much she actually shares on social media. She's also spoken to and collaborated with brands like Kate Spade, Apple, Amazon, and Unilever. Now, Amber has been featured in the New York Times, Time, Fast Company, and even Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week blog, and many, many more. So I believe that you are going to fall in love with Amber Rae. We talk about anxiety in the workplace, where she shares a very powerful exercise that you can actually use right away. We also talk about how to manage our fears when it comes to disappointing others. And I know I'm super guilty of this. And we also talk about how to make space for play, because that is where our creativity comes from. So let's get cozy in today's conversation. Hello, hello, Amber Rae.
Hello, hello.
I'm so excited to connect with you today. I actually learned about you through Rachel Pesso, which is my designer, and I know you guys have collaborated on some projects together. And I remember seeing this cool art installation that you put together called The World We Want. And we were just talking a little bit about that before we pressed record. And that's just like one part of the magic that you do in the world. So I'm super, super excited to dive in. And I know we have some shared mutual friends, and I'm really excited to meet you in person, to squeeze you and celebrate your book. I know you're going to be coming into San Francisco, so we'll talk more and more about that. But I just want to welcome you. I'm so inspired by how you show up in the world, and choosing creativity as a career path is no easy feat. So excited to dive in with you today.
Yes, me too. And I'm so inspired by you as well. So I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. So, I always like to go deep right out the bat. And the question that I love to lead with is, what does leading with love mean to you? And how do you put love into practice in your business?
Oh, I love this question so much because one of my core principles is if it's not an act of love, why do it at all?
Mm,
This really stemmed from a period of my life when I wasn't acting from a place of love. I was really acting from a place of fear and anxiety and not feeling worthy or enough. And it was leading to burnout and overwork and underplay and, just all these ways that I was trying to avoid and escape because I was afraid to face some things. And so, I had the epiphany that rather than hustle for approval, what would it look like to first really align with love internally and then let everything that I do be an act of love from there. And
mm,
so really that's like the core philosophy of everything that I do, where I literally in my business or when evaluating opportunities, I check in with myself and ask, can I wholeheartedly commit to this? Like with every ounce of my heart, does this feel aligned and connected? And do I feel a sense of flow and just a full body yes? Because if it's not, then I feel like, we're wasting our energy, our time, our capacity to give.
mm. Can you tell me about a time when you weren't honoring and not being an act of love, but it was kind of like a half-hearted yes? Can you tell me about a time when you said yes to something when it wasn't a full yes in your body?
Oh, totally. I mean, there's been many times, and often, of course, those are the profound teachers because I found that sometimes I have to not listen to really discover what listening truly looks like. And, there was one time I think of really early on, this was probably like 8 or 9 years ago, after I had worked with Seth Godin, or in the process of working with him, I had a lot of people coming to me and asking me to support them. I had made these big leaps in my career and started writing about it, and people started coming saying, hey, can you support me? And at this time, I think I was 25 years old. And I thought, who am I, a 25-year-old, to give people guidance on the next steps of their life? But decided to start an experiment around it. And it really started taking off. And my heart was truly in that. But when the project with Seth ended and, the opportunity to really turn that, it was more of a passion project, into a business, I totally self-sabotaged because I didn't think I was ready. I thought I would fail. I thought I would disappoint people. It couldn't be sustainable. Fear really took the lead. And I ended up joining a entrepreneur who had a lot of funding and a very shiny opportunity, even though everything in my body said, hell no.
Mm,
I did it because of, how it looked on paper and the sense of security and it felt like the more responsible choice. And, that opportunity, I think in 3 months, I gained 30 pounds. I started breaking out in rashes all over my body. My body was very clearly like, no, this isn't working.
mm.
I think that was one of the most like visible ones. And, it ended up leading to this panic attack, which was really the wake up call for me to be like, okay, I can't do this. And it was actually in that moment of having that panic attack, once the emotions passed, then I came back to my center. That's when my heart actually said to me, you must always obey who you are. And so, to go back to your question, now I'm just connecting that dot. I feel like to lead with love is to obey, who I am and what my truth is.
I am getting so many chills on my arms. Like, yes, to obey who you are. Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that. And
Mm.
I know part of you do speaking now, and I know one of them was anxiety in the workplace is a topic that you speak on. So I'm just curious about that part of your messaging. And I believe whether you're in a tech startup or an entrepreneur, like anxiety is increasing so much in how we
Mm-hmm.
show up in our lives. So I would love for you to just share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would have never actually framed it as anxiety in the workplace, but then I was meeting with one of my favorite brands. I was meeting with one of their VPs, and she was saying to me that worry is the number one thing impacting our bottom line. And I was like, what? Tell me more. And she really got it. She's like, the inner critic, the inner chatter, the noise inside of our employees' minds either prevents them from speaking up or encourages them to speak up. She just, she really understood that it's that either that critic or that ruminator inside is going to be whether or not we come up with new, bold, creative ideas, whether or not we, speak up in a meeting, or whether or not we, take a brave risk. And so
Mm.
that really stemmed from realizing that anxiety can have such a huge impact on not only someone's performance, but their well-being, their ability to communicate, and all of those pieces. And I've just found, it was that conversation and then looking closer and just seeing what's happening in terms of the pressure to perform, the pressure to meet these quarterly objectives. So much of it is focused on those bottom line measures that I feel like people are becoming more and more anxious, particularly with so much noise coming at us with technology and social media, which only, you look at, Instagram can easily become this comparison trap, which it is for a lot of people.
Yeah, I want to talk more about that, but I would love to know, what are one of the first things that you do when you go into someone's quarterly offsite, or, you're going into a big organization? What is one of the first things that you do to help them move through that anxiety to, choose the wonder over worry, which your book is called? I can't wait.
Yeah.
But what would you tell a bigger organization and company, like what would be the first step? And then I'm curious from an individual perspective, for someone who is more of a creative, an artist, a solopreneur. I'm just curious from a bigger company, and then what would you tell an actual individual to move from that worry and anxiety into a place of peace and calm where they can make better, bolder decisions from that?
So my approach with companies is quite unorthodox, and it terrifies some of them. And sometimes I don't actually fully tell them what I'm going to do. But basically, so a big part of my process, at least as the first step, is that vulnerability circle. Because what I find is that so often people haven't had a safe space to express what they're really feeling and where they're really stuck or what's really going on. And so it's not only getting trapped inside of their bodies, but it's, preventing them from being able to show up fully in their company or in the workplace. And so, I've done this with, I was just at TED actually last week, and I went in to give a workshop, and they're preparing for these talks. They're feeling a lot of imposter syndrome. They're feeling fear, am I doing the right talk? Is this original enough? And the first thing I had them do is build their character around whatever their worry voice is. So like one person got up and acted out this character of Becky, and how Becky said that, my talk is so unoriginal and da-da-da-da-da-da. But it's basically like, so it's a combination of, and I kind of went into two directions, but it's a combination of like step one, like what's in your space? What are you anxious about? What are you worried about? What are you not saying that you're afraid to say? This is the safe space. And so once we've created that safe space and there's been an opening, so much happens once it's just released. And Dr. Dan Siegel, who's a psychotherapist, he calls it naming it to tame it. And when we can actually vividly put words to our worries, we can reduce the anxiety associated with them by up to 50%. So much of it is just literally naming what you're feeling. And so like creating the circle or the safe container for that to happen is so important. And this goes for whether you're an organization or an individual. So name what you're feeling to tame it. And then the second step is what I was leading into, is like to talk to it. And often how I love to talk to it is to create the character around whatever that emotion is. So like my perfectionist is a 30-something British one named Grace, who wants everything in a perfect box. And just if it's not perfect, then, oh my God, you're going to die and everyone's going to hate you. And so
Love it.
now that I have Grace, or I have this persona or the archetype of the perfectionist, I can then actually have a conversation with it and understand what it wants, what it needs, and how we can work together. So so much of my work is about, creating characters out of our emotions so that we can have a relationship with them, so we can talk to them, engage with them, and understand what wisdom or insight they have for us, because oftentimes they have really valuable information for us. And it's through that relationship that we can discern between, okay, this is what's useful and this is what's toxic. Because sometimes, fear will just be like chat around things we can't control. And that's when we can say, hey, fear, I hear you. Thanks for trying to protect me. And I need you to go get a manicure right now. And so it's about this relationship. And then the other thing, if you're an artist or a creative or a solopreneur, one of my favorite things is, how do we actually use these feelings as fuel for what we create? I've found that some of my best artwork, some of my best poetry, best writing has come from a place of emotional vulnerability with myself. And when I can name that emotion, I can use that as inspiration for an article, or I can turn it into poetry, or I can paint my feelings, or maybe I'm outraged about something and I can host a dinner party to bring people together around it. So I also think the emotions can be great creative fuel.
I love that. And I did a lot of spoken word poetry, pre-motherhood, pre-being married. And I remember like life seemed a little bit easier, like in relationship, or also it was harder for me to be more vulnerable about my feelings because I had these people who are really close to me that I didn't want to hurt their feelings. So it's just so fascinating to use that rage and the sadness to actually become art. Like I really, really love that. And I also know that you talk about disappointing others. Those are one of the things that, and for me, in my own art and expression, and, I've been married for almost 13 years. I have a 10-year-old daughter.
Cool.
I know that there's this fear of not only disappointing people around me from my clients or different things like that, but also my family, of being vulnerable, of really putting your heart on your sleeves. I'm just curious about your conversation around that fear of disappointing other people.
Yeah, that's been such a struggle for me. And, ultimately what I have to come back to is, will this disappoint myself?
Mm.
And is this in alignment with my truth? Because, if the voice of worry, as I call it, is so afraid of disappointing others, wonder asks, and what would it look like to disappoint you? And, I think, there's of course respect and boundaries with other people around what we share and the level of vulnerability. And, I think it's important to keep the people in our lives, think about them as we're putting our content or our art out into the world. But ultimately, I feel like it's our mission to live and wake up and speak from our place of truth. And so I know that I would be disappointing myself if I wasn't doing that. In my book, I share this very raw story about nearly cheating on my fiance. And first I wrote it for myself, and I thought there's no way in hell I could possibly include this because everyone's going to judge me. I'm going to disappoint his family. I'm going to disappoint, all of these people. And when he read it, he said, you have to include this. And he's like, this is so real. And this it created more intimacy and commitment with us because we realized we weren't addressing some things in our relationship. And so while, this is very scary in the moment, it ultimately led to so much growth. And he was very encouraging. And so it reminds me, now I'm going down the writer path, but I remember when I was in a workshop with Cheryl Strayed, and she said, there's the book you write and there's the book you publish. And I've found it so important to make that distinction because I feel that when it comes to truth telling, I sometimes just need to write it for myself, and then I can decide later what I want to do with it, how I want to package it, how I want to share it with the world. But my commitment to myself in order to not disappoint myself is full 100% truth telling. Whether or not that makes it out into the world is a totally different question, but I must first be in connection with truth with myself.
I love that part so much because I've noticed that the perfectionism or the hesitance to create anything or document anything, when you're doing it for other people, you've already created a filter. And I remember I cut my dreads. I had my dreadlocks for 7 years, and I recorded this video, and I was like, this is not for anybody else. It's just for me. And then once I rewatched it, I was like, oh, I feel really fine sharing it now. But there was this part of me that was going to create this whole dramatic storytelling and make it very intentional and polished and all of these things. And it's just I just really love that you're saying create it for yourself first and then decide if you want to package it and hit publish and actually share it with the rest of the world. That's such a powerful practice.
Totally. And I like to think of it between the artist and the editor, because the artist is that pathway to truth and that pathway of soul connection with self. And so we do it for the artist first, and then the editor can come in and think about, okay, who's the audience? What is the message you're trying to tell? And then that's where it can be packaged or not. Because sometimes, and I think we're in a time now where vulnerability and realness is really celebrated more than ever. And, when there's so much perfectionism being showed through social media and whatnot, when we can really be real, I think it's a message that's sticking now than ever. And of course, that's dangerous because then people can try to be real in order to have it stick. But I think, it's a delicate balance between the artist and the editor.
Yeah. So what's your approach with social media? One, I'm curious, what's your favorite platform to, really vocalize your message and share with your community? And then how do you, balance between being present with what's going on in your life versus kind of documenting and sharing the pieces to inspire your community?
Yeah, so I love Instagram. I'm a huge fan of Instagram. I'm such a visual, it combines my loves for visual and words.
Mm,
And, my approach has been to just like share the real. So there's a very small filter between what's happening in my life and what I share. And, sometimes that's scary, but I remember the other day I was sharing that I couldn't really sleep because I had my fear and worry voices were very loud, thinking everyone was going to hate my book and no one was going to buy it and it was going to do terribly.
mm,
And I decided while naked in bed when I woke up to share that. And, there's a part of me that, asking, is that too much? Oh, what are people going to think? And having all of those thoughts. But ultimately I come back, this is real. And I'm just capturing, this moment. I know that before I really committed to the book, I was hoping, I wanted to see the like actual behind the scenes of what it takes. And so I've committed to sharing, some of that, not all the time, of course, because then there's like boundaries with personal life, which goes to your second question, which is, I think I seek to capture when it's an inspired and natural moment, but isn't forced. But again, that's a dance as well between when am I putting my phone away and when do I want to, capture it? Because when I am capturing, I'm not fully present.
yeah.
I find it difficult to capture the moment and be in the moment at the same time.
Yes. Yes.
Unless I'm like writing with pen and paper. So my approach with like capturing inspiration is always like, I always have pen and paper on me. And for me, that feels like a way of actually engaging more deeply in the moment. And
Mm,
so sometimes it starts there and then later I'll share that as a reflection. But in the process, and Austin Kleon talks about this in his book, Show Your Work, I try like, is there one small thing I can share every day to give it behind the scenes?
And is that the commitment? And I love that book so much. Is that the commitment that you make to show up on a daily basis for your community, or what's your approach of actually showing up on Instagram?
Yeah, I try to have it be daily in some form. I don't hold myself, if I'm not doing this every day, then, there's no like rules, but it just seems to happen where there's, I try to do something at least daily.
Yeah. And I'm curious for you, you've really claimed like, I want to be known as an author, a speaker, and a voice for creativity. Like that's the path that you want to go on. And I'm curious, what were your first steps that got you there? When you finally decide, like, yes, this is what I want to be known for. I want to speak about this. I want to write about this. I want to share about this. What were some of those? When did that seed get planted for you, where it was beyond just like my work and my art with my clients and, projects, but I actually want this to be shared on a bigger platform to the entire world?
The first step was claiming it, which was the most difficult part. I'll step back first because I think it was 10 years ago I started my first Tumblr. And the point of this Tumblr blog was really to capture my thoughts, my feelings, and inspiration. And I truly thought no one would ever be interested in reading about my feelings and emotional world. But people started coming and saying, me too, I also feel that. And I thought that was really interesting because I've been writing for as long as I can remember. I started writing as a kid and it's always been the way home for me. And it never occurred to me that it could be the way home for others too. And through me sharing, it could actually be a guide and a catalyst and a mirror for other people. And so I discovered that in my early 20s. And I remember thinking, well, that's really interesting. Who would have thought? And, I decided because I was an artist, but I also my mom she's a badass entrepreneur. So very young, she taught me like how to start things, how to make money, how to bring your ideas into the world. And so as much as there was this creative in me, there was also this like entrepreneur, this marketer, this strategist. And so I started my career in branding in the marketing world, thinking that's how I would apply my creativity. And then when it just started happening, so it was like observing what was possible by putting my voice out there, I started to notice, what landed and what didn't land. But between putting my voice out there and claiming, creativity is my path. I want to be an artist. I want to use my voice. I want to speak. I want to, and I'm still not, I feel like, fully living out that expression. Like 2 years from now, I hope I'm doing spoken word poetry on stages, And so, but it was that like 8 years after I first put my voice out there, I said, I'm claiming this path. And it was in the form of, it was my 30th birthday. And I threw a party for myself at an art gallery where I convinced the guy who ran the gallery to let me hang up my art and be a part of his show with Banksy and Shepard Fairey last minute.
Yes, I love it.
And then invited all my friends and said, I'm an artist. And then everyone, it's so interesting when you claim it for yourself, then like everyone's like, she's an artist.
Oh, I love that.
And so it really, it stemmed from that owning of it. And, I think it took me 1.5 years. There's all the chatter inside of me before that. Am I really an artist? Can I be an artist? I didn't go to art school and all of those thoughts. But eventually I said, fuck it. It's me. I'm owning it.
Yeah. So pursuing creativity as a career path, what has been challenging about that for you?
I'd say a few things come to mind. One is, and I feel this less now, but early on was definitely the trap of comparison. Looking and seeing that people I admired were so much further ahead than me, so much more talented than me, getting better opportunities and thinking, woe is me. Can I ever step into that? And, the path really, again, was about coming back home to me. How can I grow? Where do I feel called? What do I want to put together? And just continually comparing myself against myself versus other people. And I feel like that through continuing to, set intentions for myself and pursue those and then reflect and realign, pursue, reflect, realign was really my process. Eventually I feel like I discovered different forms of art that I don't think I could have found by looking outside. It really was through this emergent process with myself. So it was, moving from comparison to others to connection to self. And then I'd say the next thing is just, the business model of creativity. How do you make a living and a career and do it in a way that feels good? I think was always the big question. Like, I knew I loved to write. It didn't actually occur to me until I was 30 that I could actually make money through writing. And, the paths of that are even limited. Do I want to be a freelance writer? No, not really. Of course I want to write books, but like, am I ready to write the book? And in all of those pieces, can I even get a book advance that has me survive?
Right.
And so many of those are a bet. But, ultimately, I think the most lucrative path that I found as a creative is the speaking piece. And I was actually surprised also in the interactive art piece. I started this public art project. And after that spread around the world, brands started coming to me. And even the city of New York came to me and said, hey, we have this idea for an installation. Can you execute it? And they have big budgets. I was like, sure. And even, it's interesting because I didn't really find that was in the process of doing it. I found that wasn't fully the thing that I wanted to, that wasn't the full expression, but it was this Marie Forleo. I love it. She calls them BJs. It was like a creativity bridge job of like getting me closer to figuring out what really felt most resonant and in alignment. And, I feel like many of those pieces eventually did lead to the book, which I have been able to, from the book with the speaking and the other pieces, create a business around.
I love that. So, and the art, that was for The World We Want.
Yeah, The World We Want.
So I'm curious for you, because I think it's really helpful for people who are listening. What was the intention behind that project? Was it to, I always talk about heart projects and cash projects. And so I'm just curious, when you started it, was it like, I would like to create this so I can make some money doing my art? Or did it come from a place of a heart project?
So yeah, it was 100% a heart project. And, when I started making art, I was actually more on the business of coaching creatives to bring their art in the world, and then started to notice that, as Julia Cameron calls it, I was being a shadow artist. I was hiding behind other artists. And so I figured, okay, let me allocate some of my energy and time toward pursuing my art just for the heart of it to see what's possible. And so I began talking to strangers around New York about their hopes, their fears, their dreams, and the world they wanted to live in. And this was just all really wonder and curiosity leading me, and with no expectation of what the outcome might be. And when I was having these conversations, people started really opening up to me and sharing, I'm afraid I'll be a bad parent, or, this is the world I want to live in. And wow, I've actually never put words to it. And, my dream is this, but I'm afraid I can't have it. And I can't believe I'm telling you this, but blah, 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 blah. I was engaging in such beautiful conversations with people that's when it dawned on me of what if I brought this into a public space and created that container for other people to have this sort of meaningful dialogue. And that was really, the intention was pure curiosity. Let's see if I can actually pull this off, if it might bring a smile to someone's day, if it might, bring a little bit more love to a neighborhood. And around the time when I had the idea, I was walking around my neighborhood, Dumbo in Brooklyn, and that's when I noticed that the Dumbo Arts Festival was happening in 3 weeks. And I thought, well, this is a sign. And so, I reached out to the woman involved, and applications had closed months prior, but I somehow convinced her that I knew what I was doing. And so she gave me a 60-foot wall. And so I had never made art before. And in 3 weeks, and this is where I worked with Rachel Pesso, I immediately called her. I was like, I need your help designing this thing. I have no idea what I'm doing. We need stencils. And she worked with me to, flush out how we would execute the design. And, when I did that project, I had no idea that I could ever make money doing art like this. I had no idea that the idea might spread. It was just, what if? Let's see.
See, I love that piece because I think so often, especially in the entrepreneurial world, we're intentional. We're like, we got to make money, but there's this part of a lot of projects that turn into revenue or turn into an idea that spreads, as Seth Godin says, is from a place of just for the heart of it.
Totally.
Just to create, to serve the world in some way, and how that was a building block for you to, enter the doors of corporations, to speak on stages, which then led to the book deal, right?
Yeah.
It's these steps, these milestones that you couldn't have planned out strategically.
Totally. I mean, how Kate Spade, which became a client of mine, and I'm even going on the book tour, they're part of my tour, they've been so supportive, is because the head of their foundation saw the world we want and loved it. And then reached out to me and said, hey, can you create this for us? And I said, can you jump on a phone call? We jump on a phone call. We have this amazing conversation. And then I'm like, oh, by the way, I speak and do these other things. She's like, oh, really? I didn't know. And then she's like, hold on, I'm connecting you to this person and this person. And next thing, it all emerged from there. So I feel like we can create our opportunities and by following these heart-led ideas, things that we want to pursue because we're curious and it's led by love and we want to see what's possible, which again, no amount of strategy can predict what could even be possible. I could have never predicted where I am at this moment because I truly was just being led by love and wonder and curiosity. And then it was just a matter of connecting the dots as I went along.
Yeah. And also what I am hearing a little bit of a recurring theme for you is that claiming and claiming out loud, because you basically were like, and I do these things. So it's also owning out loud, raising your hand that I'm available for more. And that's not always easy for people. So I'm just curious, what would you say to someone who isn't fully owning what they do, all of the magic that they do in the world, to kind of open up more of those doors and opportunities?
Yeah. I mean, I would say first I'd want to get curious of at a root level, why aren't you owning it? What's really going on there? Is there a story that you think you're not good enough, you're not ready yet? Or I'd be curious around what that story is. And then to wonder if that's the story you want to keep buying into. And if not, let's create a new narrative for you and let's get really clear on what those offerings look like for you. Because, oftentimes I find with people is that they actually just don't know how to express what it is that they do. And so let's get clear. Maybe it's I speak, I do this, and I do this. And then, making the asks as clear and direct as possible. I find that we often, and I know I did this, is beat around the bush and hide the ask versus say, here's how I'd love to support you and here's why. And so it's, that is a muscle to be built. It's not something that we're necessarily naturally good at. And so then I'd say the invitation would be to do an asking experiment. What are 5 asks you can make this week that are slightly uncomfortable, but that are super direct and targeted?
Oh, I love that. So I'm curious, there's people who I see that they're creatives, but they don't identify as
Mm.
being creative. What are your thoughts around that when people are like, don't own the label of being a creative?
Yeah, I mean, we're all creative. We're all artists. We're born creative. I so believe our creativity is where everything stems from. And so if you don't identify as being a creative, again, why not? And I'm curious, what have you, like, why do people not want to be labeled as a creative, or why are they not? Are they afraid to
Yeah.
own that label?
Yeah, so I think people have a perception of, so if someone saw you, they'd be like, Amber Rae is a creative. Like she's painting, she's writing, she's taking pictures.
Mm,
And then there's someone who's just like, I'm just not that creative, like I'm kind of like, do my checklist, do my to-dos,
yeah,
and so they're almost using it as a crutch of like, well, I can't show up on Instagram because I'm not creative.
yeah.
I can't start a podcast because I'm not a speaker. Like it's
Mm,
those things almost using that to hold them back, or that maybe it wasn't nurtured when they were a child.
yeah,
They almost
yeah,
define creativity as like paint, poetry,
yeah.
not as like we're all creative beings, as you said.
Totally, yeah. And I mean, spreadsheets and the way that information is organized can be as creative as painting a masterpiece.
I
And
love
so
that.
I feel like it's so important to know, like, what is it that you create? Like, do you create food in a kitchen? Do you create conversations in a space? Do you create super efficient and organized systems? Do you create order and chaos? Do you create, memorable poetry? What is it for you? Because we're all creating something. Life is an act of creation.
Oh, I love
And
that.
I feel like if we can get clear on what that act is, that's our offering. So, I have a friend of mine who will walk into a room and she always knows the right question to ask. Always, like to immediately open up the group, to get people connecting, always knows. She is so brilliant at creating meaningful questions. I have another friend who's so amazing at like bringing the right people together. And so for him, he's amazing at creating community. And then like I think of Kelly, who's on my team. She's incredible at creating these like efficient spreadsheets, which are things that I could never do. And so she's creating efficiency on our team. And she's, through that efficiency, enabling me to be more creative in the ways that I'm creative. And so all of our realms of creativity flow and work together and make us all better.
So good. So I know that you really embrace play and
Mm.
you make space for that. So one, I'm just curious, how do you make space for play when there's so many expectations from you, book deadlines, preparing for a talk, all of these different things? How do you actually create that space for play? And then a bonus question, I'm curious what you did for fun, for play when you were 10 years old.
So, I'm a big believer that serious work comes through serious play. And so I know that's where my ideas come from. And I know that and I've been experiencing this with the whole book launch is if I start to feel depleted, it's because I'm not playing enough. And if I start to feel depleted, my work suffers, the book suffers, the launch suffers. And so just trusting in the power of play as a vehicle to nourishment and creativity has been so pivotal. And, I have to do it, particularly right now when my schedule is so packed. I actually schedule it in my calendar. So
Mm,
prior to this interview, I was like dancing in the living room
yeah.
as a way to really connect with source and to get in my body and to, make it playful. And even like for things that aren't traditionally playful, I'll wonder like, how can I make a meeting with my team more playful? How can I make just meeting anyone? Can we go on a walk? Can we like get in nature? Can we go to a playground and swing on swings? I think there's so many ways to actually infuse play in what we're already doing. And so two questions I love to ask myself around anything is like, how can this be easy and how can this be playful?
Mm,
And I'm not saying easy as in like not necessarily that pushing away the difficult tasks, but it's more bringing a sense of ease into whatever we're in front of. And so, yeah, those are some of the ways that I weave in play. And in terms of what I did for fun as a kid, the first thing that came to mind was I started an online magazine when I was 11. And this thing was like I was so in love. This was the greatest heart project for me. Every Sunday, I would spend the entire day gathering. I had like different writers that were contributors, and I would gather their writing and I would piece it all together. And it was called Teen Zine, and I wanted to inspire confidence in young girls. And I would like color code it and like get it all together and go in AOL chat rooms to see if any young girls wanted to get this newsletter.
Oh, I love that.
Which is like, I'm the same person now.
Totally.
And so it's just, again, like that was the origin of the work I do today, which just came from my like childlike play and desire to create content and share messages.
I love that. So what is your play menu? Like what are kind of your go-tos of things? Because I think sometimes we just need sources of inspiration, and I'm all about like stealing ideas from people to inspire you to build up that play menu for yourself.
Totally. So I'm obsessed with the Wild Unknowns Animal Spirit Deck, which is the tarot cards. And these are just like, I mean, every morning I can't wait to like pull my card and it just infuses intention into my day. So that's one of the ways I play. I also, through moving my body, dance, and just getting in my body, tech-free walks. So where I leave my phone at home and I bring a notebook, and my entire job is just to spot clues and note down inspiration. And let's see, how else do I play? I love wine dates with friends and my fiance as a way to play and connect. We have a swing in our living room. So swinging on the swing, when I get stressed, I'm like, let me just get on the swing right here. Let me go swing up into the air and realize that these worries aren't that as big of a deal as I may want to think.
Yeah, so good. So you have your book. We've been talking about it lots. Choose wonder over worry, and to move beyond fear and doubt to unlock your full potential. And I'm curious, what's been most exciting and also most challenging about the book writing process?
Most exciting is, that I got to do this, and this is, I feel like, my life's work. And the most exciting part has been watching the process unfold, because I have been awe-inspired at every touch point, because I feel like it's so beyond me what's happening. Like even the process of writing the book, I'd spent 5 months on this proposal, and when I sat down to write the book, the proposal no longer resonated for me. The proposal that I had sold, so I just started started diving into the stories and asking myself, okay, what is the story I ache to tell? What is the story I want to enter? What is the story I fear entering? And just started writing and collecting stories, and which went against everything that I had learned about writing a book. And through that process, the format and structure of the book emerged, which again, I couldn't have thought up. And so like the book ended up being this invitation to meet all of these different emotions. And so you meet anger and anxiety and fear and imposter syndrome, and you meet all these aspects of yourself, and you learn to turn toward them with curiosity, love, and wonder. And I remember when I had the epiphany 3 weeks before my manuscript was due of, oh my God, this is how the book is structured. And it was sort of, the aha moment of sort of how Inside Out is structured.
Yes, that's all I was seeing was all the colorful characters.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. And my life's work has always been about that emotional world and how we connect with, relate to, and be with these different emotions, and how we, discern between what's useful and what's toxic, and just what that relationship looks like. And so I remember the moment when it all came together, and I was like, wow, there's no way I could have thought that up. And so I feel like the whole book has been deeply emergent through, doing the work, committing, through devotion, showing up every day, and then just being like, whoa, didn't see that coming. That's interesting. And so that's been really exciting and awe-inspiring, just being in the process and being a witness of it.
And can I, before you go into the challenging part, I just want to highlight, one, that you worked 5 months on your book proposal, and 2, that what you ended up laboring on for so long was actually not what the book ended up being, or even the book that you sold your publishers into. So I think it's so important for people to hear, because we get caught up in that perfectionism and over polishing and all of this stuff behind the scenes, because we're like, it's got to be right. But it's just like the door is just opening and you're stepping into that creative process. And if we can just let's just get something out, let's just share it. And then more of the work and what's true and what's the true heart work will unveil itself through time.
Absolutely. And I like to think of it as peeling back this onion, where I feel like the proposal helped me peel off like 2 layers. And then, like, the first 3 weeks of writing was another layer. And then I started really getting deeper and deeper into being like, oh, this is the gem and the soul of the work. But I had to first peel off those outer shells to even be able to access and get to that place. And then once I found, okay, this is it, this is what it is, then I was able to build everything around that.
Love
And
that.
so, and then, but the fear of, am I going to piss off my editor? Like, she thinks this is a different book, that was super present.
Yes.
But, and I was very relieved. I wish I would have asked sooner, because I was relieved to learn after I submitted my writing, which I was like, oh no, she's going to hate this. This isn't what she thought. She said 50% of the time it's exactly to the T, the proposal, and 50% of the time it's not. And that's just every writer is a little different. And so I think I didn't realize how, I thought I was the only one who had ever done that.
No one talks about the book writing
about that.
No one talks about it. So I'm glad we're talking about it.
I know, which it was so relieving that maybe, that I wasn't the only one who decided to go a totally different direction. And they were super supportive. And the editor from the very beginning said, I'm here to help shepherd the work, but if there's anything you don't like, you get the final choice. So that was relieving.
Yeah. And then what's been challenging about the book writing process for you?
So it's funny you brought up the perfectionist, because for sure the perfectionist who, thought, oh my God, I wrote this book wrong and I'm going to disappoint everyone. Or, that the perfectionist always showed up when I was about to go there, like really go there. And I think that's because the perfectionist was afraid of being judged. Grace was afraid of being judged. So it really became this dance of really reassuring Grace that this is where we need to go and it's safe. And once I did, we would go there, clearly. I ended up writing the book I wanted to write, but it was this ongoing dance. And even around the launch process, I find that I'm wanting to perfect every detail to the point of what I paint on a package to there comes a point where every detail can't be perfect, and to really focus on, okay, let me take a step back. What actually matters here? What actually matters here? Is it having the best venue in the world, or is it having the right people in the room and having the right intention? And so it's picking those priorities and really focusing on what matters most.
Were there any writing rituals or habits, routines that you put in place to get it done? Because I feel that you signed your book deal, was it April of last year?
Yeah, I wrote the book in 2.5 months.
Yeah.
So that's the other challenge, was the timeline on this. Was I didn't really actually realize until my agent recently said to me, I'll never do that to you again.
Yeah.
It was so ready to be born. It was bursting. The book and the idea was bursting to explode out of me. So I feel like if I would have had more time, I just would have delayed more. And instead, the timeline, I ended up saying, family, fiance, mom, I love you. I'm going to Bali for 2 months and I'll see you on the other side when the book is finished. And so I knew I needed that really enclosed time. And I wanted to be in I feel like environment is so key, and being in a pull that reflects whatever mode you're in. So Bali is divine feminine, it's flow, it's wellness, it's creativity. And so it really enabled me to dive into that. And then I was up at sunrise every day. Sunrise, ritual, meditate, journal, start with pen and paper, map stories. I always start, if I tried to sit down and write on my computer, it was worthless. But if I would sit and say, okay, here are 3 ideas, let me start to mind map these ideas. Oh, here's a story around that. Oh, here's some research around that. Oh, here's an insight here. And I would just follow the trail. Next thing I know, I would paint an entire essay in 5 minutes. And then that would expedite the writing process. And it also helped me to realize that 2.5 months feels really short, but it actually was only 611 words a day in order to meet my deadline.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that, I was like, oh, I can definitely do that. And, there were days when I was writing 4,000 words a day.
That's amazing.
And so it was really anchoring in okay, what's the goal I need to meet? And then what's the ritual to feel the best me?
So good. And I love that you just honored and owned that this was work that was bursting out of you and that it just needed to be shared. And also I think permission to have those shorter windows to allow those bursts. Some people need time and need kind of like that ritual of daily writing for, 6 months, 9 months. And some people are like, actually, the time crunch is where the creativity is really bursting out and through in the most expansive way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really think it's an individual check-in because, I think other people may like, I have another friend who, her book's been pushed back almost a year because her deadline was too tight. And then I have another friend who just knew I want 9 months to do this, and so it's a personal check-in process.
Yeah, it's so good. So for you, before we wrap up, I'd love to know what's the vision that you are moving towards now? What's your why? What's burning in your belly as you step into this initiation of being a published author?
The vision for me is very visual. It's very interesting. I was guided through a meditation years ago, a visualization meditation, where I met my gift for the world, which was this 11-year-old girl named Ella who handed me a turquoise blue box. And when that box opened, a ray of light shined from the box into my heart and then exploded out into the world. And for the past 5 years, not only do I now have turquoise boxes everywhere in my apartment, including one that I found in the middle of the desert in Morocco and took home with me, which was crazy. But I have continued to see these visions of, the last one was I was walking on water and saw a sailboat and picked up the turquoise blue box and then walked to the center of this circle where there are about 1,000 people around me. And I opened the box and the light shined into my heart and then exploded into the world, exploded into everyone's hearts. And then it all shot up into the world. And so I feel like it's interesting for being someone who's so focused on words. When you ask that question, I actually just see a visual of light exploding from our collective heart.
Just breathing that in. Amber Rae, you are an absolute delight and joy. And I know myself, and I'm sure everyone listening is ready to dive into your work of art with Choose Wonder Over Worry. And I'm just curious if there's anything else we haven't covered that you'd love to share before we say goodbye.
What's coming up is the notion that I think the other challenge and the thing that I really want to drive home is that rejection is redirection. And so much rejection will emerge in the process of pursuing your path and following your creativity and trusting that that's just bringing you closer to who you're really creating for. And knowing that, I'm actually to the point where I'm aiming for rejection in a way because I know it's just going to bring me closer to my people. And so to really lean into that and see where it leads you.
I love that. Embracing rejection as redirection. It's a beautiful way to wrap this up. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was beautiful and wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for your heart and attention in listening to Lead with Love. If this message, leading with love in life and business, and remembering the humans and beating hearts behind the numbers and all of that good stuff, I would love for you to take the time to leave an honest review. It would mean the world to me, and it also helps more people find out about the goodness and helping spreading more love in the world, which we really, really need. So I would really appreciate that, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.